So it has been interesting to watch the developments with Matthew Stafford over the past couple weeks, and today something very interesting came out that I think is very noteworthy. It came out earlier today from Jordan Schultz, who said this: sources, Raiders minority owner Tom Brady recently hosted Rams QB Matthew Stafford at his home in Montana, where they spent time together and went skiing. Brady has been actively trying to convince Stafford to join the Raiders, and discussions are ongoing. Several teams are interested in Stafford if the Rams decide to move him, with Las Vegas believed to be the most aggressive suitor. And this was also added this morning from Diana Rossini here. Matthew Stafford's exploration of his market value the last few weeks has indeed attracted significant interest from teams, notably the Raiders and the Giants per sources. Teams are anticipating the Rams will now be driving up the asking price if they decide to move him. So I think the fact that you see Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford meeting together, Brady trying to convince Stafford to join the Raiders, I don't think this is nothing. I think that initially when you heard the news, or the news came out that the Rams were allowing Stafford to go out and talk with other teams to see what his potential contract value could be, it sounded to me like maybe he goes out, he figures out, he talks with other teams, sees about what number other teams are willing to pay him. Then maybe he goes back to the Rams, tells them what other teams are willing to pay, and if they don't want to pay that, then maybe the Rams move to trade him. But I do think that, when you have Tom Brady out here as now a part owner of the Raiders, and you have him out there with Matthew Stafford trying to convince him to join the Raiders, who knows how those talks went? Who knows what Matthew Stafford is really thinking? But when you have a team like the Raiders that I would assume are willing to pay Stafford more than the Rams, it wouldn't be shocking if Matthew Stafford, during his time with Brady, was convinced that maybe going to Las Vegas could be better for him, not only financially, but it could be that Tom Brady's sort of showing him the vision for what the Raiders could be in the next few years. So if the Raiders are willing to pay a lot more than the Rams, I would assume that a trade could get done. And I think that the thing here, which is interesting, is you have lots of these teams like the Giants, like the Raiders, teams that don't have an answer at quarterback. You have a team like the Rams who currently have Matthew Stafford on the roster, and it feels like these teams that haven't had a solid QB for years are more willing to pay up for guys because they've been through that experience of being in quarterback no man's land, where you have a team like the Rams that for a while has had solid quarterback play with Matthew Stafford. And so it feels like these teams are more needy and more willing to pay a lot of money for certain players, because it sounds like the Giants and the Raiders I would assume, be willing to pay Stafford $50+ million, because it sounds like that's what he's looking for. And I would assume that the Rams, up to this point, have not been willing to pay that kind of money, which is why they allowed Stafford to go out and talk with other teams. And so if that sort of stays in place, then it wouldn't be shocking to see the Rams actually trade him. So it's still, uncertain about the future, but it is interesting that, it's gotten to the point where he's, skiing with Tom Brady, and Brady is basically pitching him on why he should join the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think that when you look at Matthew Stafford, it's not like he was a top 5, top 10 quarterback last year. He was 16th in EPA per dropback, 15th in passer rating, 28th in completion percentage over expected, 20 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. It was a fine year, but it's not like he played at a top tier level. And so if you're the Rams and you can get a first round pick in return for Matthew Stafford, and then you can turn around and sign someone like Aaron Rodgers, who I think was slightly less productive than Stafford in 2024. He wasn't that far off. He had more, touchdown passes. But with Aaron Rodgers, 22nd in EPA per dropback, 6 spots worse than Stafford, 20th in passer rating, 5 spots worse than Stafford. And my guess is if Aaron Rodgers was in, Sean McVay's scheme, he would put up similar numbers to Stafford. So if you're the Rams, you can trade a 37-year-old quarterback, get a first-round pick in return, have Aaron Rodgers for maybe a year, and then maybe you draft a quarterback. That could be better for the Rams' long-term future. So we'll keep an eye on this, sort of see where all this goes, going forward. But if you want more NFL content, NFL news, feel free to subscribe below, and I'll see you guys next time.